first time Emma noticed the doll had moved, she thought it was her mother. It sat in the old rocking chair by the window, the chair that had belonged to her grandmother. The doll's porcelain face was cracked along one cheek, like a delicate spider web frozen in white glaze. Its glass eyes were a pale, cloudy blue, almost milky, as if it had been pulled out of a lake. Its hair-dirty blonde curls fell stiffly around its face, tangled and stiff with age. It had always been there. Her mother said the doll came with the house, just like the rocking chair, the wardrobe, and the faint smell of dust and something older in the hallway. Their new home was cheaper because it was old, and because the previous owner had died here. Her mother tried to make that sound normal. People die everywhere, sweetie. Houses remember things, that's all. But the doll remembered something else. When they moved in, the doll sat in the corner of the rocking chair, turned slightly toward the window, as if watching the overgrown garden outside. It stayed that way for the first 2 days, unmoving, unblinking. On the third night, Emma woke up around 2:43 a.m. The number glowed on her cheap digital alarm clock in sickly red digits. She wasn't sure what woke her. Maybe the wind rattling the window. Maybe the faint creaking sound, like someone shifting their weight on old floorboards. She rolled over in bed and squinted toward the window. The rocking chair was facing her now. The doll's cracked face was turned directly toward the bed, its glass eyes catching a sliver of light from the street lamp outside. It looked like it was staring straight at her. Emma frowned into the dark. I must be imagining this. She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders, feeling that fuzzy border between dream and reality. Maybe she just forgot how the chair had been positioned. Maybe her mom had moved it while cleaning. She checked the time again. 2:43 a.m. The room felt colder than it should. Emma closed her eyes. She tried to ignore the strange feeling that something was watching her. The thought repeated itself like a quiet whisper. It's just a doll. It's just a doll. It's just a doll. Eventually she fell asleep. The next morning, she walked across the room and stood in front of the rocking chair. The doll sat exactly how she'd seen it in the night, in the center of the seat, body facing the bed, head slightly tilted, as if listening. Its eyes reflected nothing, yet felt full, somehow. "Mom," Emma called, not taking her eyes off the doll. "Did you move this?" Her mother's voice floated up from downstairs. "Move what, honey?" "The doll in the chair." A moment later, her mother appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She followed Emma's gaze and chuckled softly. "No, I haven't touched that creepy thing." "Why?" Emma swallowed. It was facing the window before. "Maybe you bumped the chair, baby. It's old. Everything in this house moves if you look at it wrong. You know how it is." Her mom smiled and turned away. "Come down for breakfast. You're going to be late." Emma stayed alone with the doll. She leaned a little closer, examining its cracked cheek and faintly smiling lips. The porcelain was yellowed with age. The paint on its lips faded, but still red enough to look fresh. "You're just a toy," she whispered under her breath. A quiet draft moved through the room, nudging the rocking chair just a fraction of an inch. The dolls had caught another line of light and flashed at her. Emma stepped back. That night, she had trouble sleeping. The house creaked more loudly than the apartment they'd lived in before. There were strange sounds, the hum of old pipes, the low groan of settling beams, the faint tapping of branches against the window. Her mother had fallen asleep on the couch downstairs, the TV still murmuring softly to itself. Emma lay awake, staring at the faint outline of the rocking chair. She turned it back toward the window before going to bed, placing the doll carefully in the middle of the seat. It had felt silly to do it, like she was scared of a toy, but she couldn't help herself. Now, in the soft darkness, she could just barely see the curve of the chair's back, the rounded shape of the doll's head. Her eyes burned from keeping them open too long. She blinked once, twice. Sleep dragged her under. She dreamed of glass eyes watching her through keyholes, through mirrors, from cracks in the walls. She dreamed of tiny hands touching her blanket and something small crawling under her bed. She woke suddenly, heart pounding. The room was still. The digital clock on the nightstand glowed red again. 2:43 a.m. The same time, her throat felt dry. Emma slowly turned her head toward the rocking chair. The doll was closer, not just facing her this time. The rocking chair had moved. Instead of being by the window, it now stood about half a meter nearer to the bed, just enough that the distance felt wrong, obvious, invasive. The doll sat perfectly upright, hands in its lap, head tilted a little more to the right, like it was studying her. Emma's stomach turned to ice. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She squeezed her eyes shut, opening them again quickly, like maybe she would catch the room rearranging itself. Nothing changed. The chair was closer. The doll was still. The air felt heavier, somehow, like the darkness had thickened around her. She thought of waking her mother but stopped herself. What would she say? The doll is getting closer. Her mom would just sigh and tell her she'd pushed the chair herself and forgotten. "It's sleep," Emma told herself. "You're half asleep. It's a trick of the dark. You're scared and your brain is making things worse." But deep down, somewhere in the quiet part of her mind that didn't play games, she knew that was a lie. The house watched, the house listened, and the doll moved. On the fourth night, the pattern repeated. The day had been almost normal. School was boring, the teachers were tired, and no one there cared about old haunted houses. A few kids had asked about her new place, and someone joked about ghosts. Emma laughed it off, but the words stuck in her head the whole way home. When the sun set, her room fell into shadow quickly. The window faced the garden, which was choked with dead bushes and a tall leaning tree that blocked most of the streetlight. By 8 p.m., her room always looked darker than it should. She did her homework at the small desk by the wall, deliberately ignoring the rocking chair. She had moved it back again that morning, pushing it firmly into the corner by the window. The doll had been reset to its original position, gazing outward, not at her. She didn't look at it all day. She pretended it didn't exist. That night, she fell asleep with the blinds half closed, the moonlight slicing the room into pale strips. She woke up to the familiar red glow. 2:43 a.m. Her heart started pounding before her brain had fully caught up. No, no, please. Her eyes slid toward the chair, edged by a feeling like ice fingers pressing into her ribs. The chair was closer, again. Now, instead of a half meter, it was almost at the foot of her bed, angled slightly toward her, as if it had shuffled forward inch by inch in the dark while she slept. The doll's cracked face stared at her from the dimness, its blank eyes dull and yet somehow full of attention. Emma's breath came shallow and shaky. Her mind raced, trying to force a rational explanation. Sleepwalking. Maybe she was moving it herself. Maybe she was dreaming and didn't know it. Maybe. The rocking chair creaked. Just once. A slow, gentle, unmistakable wooden groan. Emma froze. The doll did not move, but the chair had, she was sure. The cold air pressed down on her like water. She pulled the blanket up to her chin, her fingers trembling, and did the only thing her 12-year-old brain could think of. She hid. She pulled the blanket completely over her head and curled up as tightly as she could, like she did when she was 6 and afraid of monsters. Her own breathing sounded loud to her, trapped in the tiny fabric world she'd made for herself. The silence stretched on. Then, faintly, from beyond the blanket, she heard it creak, like weight shifting. Closer. The hair on her arm stood up under the blanket. Her eyes flooded with tears she refused to let fall. "Stop," she whispered into the darkness of the covers, so quietly she barely heard herself. "Stop. Please, stop." The creaking stopped. She stayed like that until her body finally surrendered to exhaustion. When she woke up, pale morning light seeped through the window. Her alarm read 9:17 a.m. She was late. She threw off the blanket, heart racing, and froze. The rocking chair was back by the window. The doll was in its old position, like nothing had happened. Emma didn't tell her mother. The words sat in her throat all morning, but every time she tried to speak them, they sounded ridiculous in her head. It was easier to say nothing and pretend everything was fine. Her mother noticed something though. "You look exhausted," she said, handing Emma a piece of toast before she ran out the door. "Bad dreams." Emma hesitated. "Yeah, something like that. If it's this house creeping you out," her mom said gently. "Remember, it's just old wood and dust. Nothing here can hurt you." Emma didn't answer, because she wasn't sure that was true. She started paying attention to the time. The next night, she fought sleep as long as she could. Watching the minutes crawl toward 2:43 a.m., she sat up in bed, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the rocking chair by the window. She had made a decision. She was not going to look away. If it wanted to move, it would have to do it while she was watching. The house was quiet, too quiet. Even the usual little creaks and sighs seemed to be holding their breath. 2:39. Her eyelids burned. 2241. The red digits seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. 242. Her gaze didn't leave the doll. Its face was expressionless and still. Its hands rested on its lap. Its shoes dangled just above the floor. 243. The clock changed. The world held still. Nothing moved. For a full minute, Emma sat there, muscles trembling, ears straining for any sound. The rocking chair did not creak. The doll did not shift. Relief started seeping into her chest, slow and shaky. Maybe it was just dreams. Maybe it had always been dreams. Her shoulders dropped slightly. She blinked just once. The tiniest flicker of an eye closing and opening. The rocking chair was closer. Not by much, maybe only 10 centimeters. But the difference was there, clear and sharp as a knife. The line of shadow around it had changed. The angle of the moonlight on the doll's face slightly different. It had moved again. While she was looking, her heart slammed into her throat. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking. "No, no, no." The rocking chair creaked, rocking forward an inch, then back, very slowly, deliberately. The doll remained absolutely rigid, as if it were bound to some invisible force, but the chair moved under it like hands pushing from behind. Emma's breath came in quick, panicked gasps. "Stop," she cried. The rocking stopped. The silence that followed was worse. The doll watched her in the dark. She felt it deeply, intimately, like eyes pressed against the inside of her skull. The next day, Emma skipped school. Her mother had left early for work at the cafe downtown, thinking Emma had already gone. Emma waited until the house was empty, then went back upstairs to her room. She stood in front of the rocking chair, her fingers shaking. The doll stared up at her with those cloudy blue eyes. Up close, the crack in its cheek looked deeper, as if it had spread a little wider overnight. A faint line of darker gray traced the path of the fracture, like something wet had seeped into it. "Who put you here?" Emma whispered. Of course, the doll didn't answer. Its lips were painted in a faint, permanent smile. Slowly, she reached out and picked it up. It was heavier than it looked. Cold, too. Not just room temperature, cold, deeper, like it had been sitting outside in the winter. The sensation made her skin crawl, holding it by its stiff waist. She carried it out of her room, through the hallway, and into the attic stairwell. The attic door groaned as she pulled it open, dust floating in the thin light. The air up there smelled like old wood and forgotten things. Without letting herself think too much, she climbed the narrow stairs and found a dusty wooden trunk in the corner. She ripped it open, shoved some old blankets aside, and dropped the doll inside. It landed with a dull thud. Emma slammed the trunk closed, ignoring the way its metal latch protested. She backed away, heart racing. "You stay there," she whispered. As she turned to leave, something small tapped behind her. She froze. It sounded like porcelain gently touching wood from inside the trunk. She didn't look back. She ran downstairs and slammed the attic door behind her, pressing her back against it, forcing her own breathing to slow. That night, she slept more easily, or tried to. At 2:43 a.m., she woke anyway. Her body knew the time before her eyes opened. Her heart was already racing. She lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, telling herself there was no doll in the room. It was in the attic. It was locked away. She had moved it. She remembered doing it. She turned her head toward the window. The rocking chair was empty. Moonlight washed over its wooden surface, pale and harmless. The chair did not move. For a moment, relief flooded through her so strongly she nearly cried. She laughed instead, a weak, shaky sound in the darkness. "See," she whispered to herself. "See, it's fine. It's the mattress dipped. Just slightly." As if a small weight had pressed against the edge of the bed, Emma's blood turned to ice. The pressure was near her feet. Slowly, painfully, she looked down. There, at the end of the bed, sitting neatly on the quilt, was the doll. Its dress was wrinkled, as if it had been squeezed inside something. The crack on its cheek was wider. Its glass eyes stared up at her from much closer than ever before. Emma couldn't scream. The sound died in her chest. The doll's head tilted just a fraction to the side. A faint creaking sound echoed from above, from the ceiling, from the attic. The trunk, she thought wildly. The trunk is open. She scrambled backward, pressing herself against the headboard, eyes locked on the doll. Her hand searched blindly for the lamp switch on her nightstand. Her fingers shook so much they knocked over the alarm clock. It fell to the floor with a hard clatter and went silent. The room plunged into a deeper, heavier darkness. Emma's hand finally found the lamp and snapped it on. Yellow light exploded across the room. The doll was still there, still sitting on the bed, still staring. But now, in the light, Emma noticed something new. The doll's tiny porcelain hands, which had always been molded together in a prim, folded position, were slightly apart now. The fingers were spread, curved just a little, as if ready to grasp. Something dark rimmed the edges of its fingernails. For one dizzy moment, Emma thought it looked like dirt, or something else. She grabbed the doll with both hands, ignoring the cold that seeped into her skin, and flung it across the room. It hit the wall with a sick crack and fell behind the rocking chair, out of sight. Her breathing came in harsh, ragged bursts. The lamp cast hard shadows, slicing the room into sharp shapes. The rocking chair loomed in the corner, empty again. Emma stayed awake until dawn, too afraid to close her eyes. When she finally gathered the courage to look behind the rocking chair, the doll was there on the floor, face down, one arm twisted at an unnatural angle. For the first time, she saw the back of its head. There were scratches in the porcelain, long, desperate scratches, as if something inside had tried to claw its way out. The next evening, Emma told her mother she was scared of the doll. She didn't tell her everything about the moving chair, the exact time, the doll appearing on the bed, but she said enough to make her voice shake. Her mother sighed, tired lines etched around her eyes. "Sweetie, it's just an old toy." "It's not," Emma insisted, feeling tears sting her eyes. "Mom, it moves. I swear it moves. Can we just get rid of it, please?" Her mother hesitated, looking at her daughter for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Okay, if it makes you feel better, we'll get rid of it. Throw it away, donate it, whatever. You don't have to keep it." Relief almost crushed Emma. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, before bed, her mother went upstairs with a cardboard box. Emma watched from the doorway as she picked the doll up from where Emma had left it on the floor. She giggled. "Wow, this thing is creepy up close," she muttered. "I don't know how anyone slept with this, staring at them. Can we just hurry?" Emma said, hugging herself. Her mother placed the doll in the box, closed the flaps, and taped them shut. "There, I'll put it with the trash outside," she said. "It'll be gone in the morning." Emma watched her carry the box downstairs. She listened to the squeak of the back door, the dull thud of the box being set outside. When her mother came back with empty hands, Emma finally let herself breathe. "It's gone," her mom said. "Happy?" Emma nodded, though something like dread still clung to the edges of her mind. She slept better that night at first. No rocking chair movements, no creaks, no cold porcelain weight at the end of the bed. Just sleep, deep and dreamless, until tap. A soft sound, like something gently knocking on wood. Emma stirred. Tap, tap, tap. Her eyes opened slowly. The room was dark, lit only by the faint gray of early dawn. Her alarm clock blinked for 12 a.m. The numbers partially scrambled from where it had hit the floor before. The tapping came again, from the window. No, she realized, sitting up slowly, heart already pounding. Not the window, the wall, right behind the headboard. Tap, 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 like porcelain knuckles knocking from the wrong side of the wall. Emma's mouth went dry. She pressed her palm against the wallpaper. It felt cold, not just cool, but icy, like something had frozen inside the wall itself. Tap, the vibration shivered through her bones. She yanked her hand back. The tapping followed the outline of the wall, going lower, then higher, then lower again, as if something were pacing behind it, searching, feeling its way along, and then it stopped. The silence that followed was thick, unnatural. Very slowly, Emma turned her head toward the rocking chair. It was empty. "The box," she told herself desperately. "It's in the trash. The garbage truck will take it in the morning. It's not here. It can't be here." Then she noticed the floor. Tiny, white, dust-like fragments lay scattered near the base of the wall. Little flakes of something chalky, like pieces of eggshell or brittle stone, or porcelain. Her heart stuttered. There was a hairline crack in the wall now, barely visible in the dim light. It traced a path from near the floor up toward the outline of her bed. She didn't sleep again. Not that night. Not really. In the morning, as soon as her mother left for work, Emma ran outside to the trash bins behind the house. Her hands shook as she lifted the lid. The cardboard box was gone. Her breath caught. Maybe the garbage truck had come early. Maybe the neighbors took it. Maybe she turned, scanning the small backyard. The old leaning tree cast long shadows over the dead grass. Near its base, something sat upright, a shape, small, familiar. She took a step closer, then another, her stomach churning. The doll sat against the trunk of the tree, dress stained with dirt, head tilted, hands resting in its lap. The crack across its cheek was deeper now, branching into smaller fractures like veins. Its eyes, though its eyes looked clearer somehow, less cloudy, more focused. Emma stumbled backward, nearly slipping on the damp grass. "No," she whispered. No, I'm done. She didn't touch it. She ran back into the house, locked the door, and went straight to her room. The crack in the wall near her bed was slightly wider. She tried everything. She buried the doll in the far corner of the garden, digging into the cold earth with a rusted shovel she found in the shed. Her hands blistered, her breath fogging in the air. She didn't care. She dug until the hole was deep enough to swallow her arm up to the elbow. She dropped the doll in without looking at its face. As the soil fell over it, covering its staring eyes, she felt a tightness in her chest, as if someone were wrapping invisible fingers around her ribs and squeezing. Her vision blurred for a moment, then it was gone. She patted the earth flat and walked away without looking back. That night, she locked her bedroom door. She pushed her dresser in front of it. She closed her curtains and left the lamp on. She stayed awake until past midnight, eyes heavy, body aching, fear sitting in her chest like a stone. At some point, despite everything, she drifted off. At 2:43 a.m., something small and cold touched her ankle under the blanket. Her eyes flew open. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Slowly, the touch traveled higher, a delicate weight pressing against her shin, then her knee, then her thigh, like a small body crawling, climbing. Her skin crawled beneath it, a wave of nausea and terror washing through her. Tears burned her eyes. "Don't look," her mind screamed. "Don't look, don't look, don't." She looked. The blanket lifted slightly as the small shape shifted underneath it, moving closer to her chest. A pale porcelain hand pushed through the fabric, fingers spread. Emma screamed. She threw herself out of bed, hitting the floor hard, knocking the lamp over in the process. The room exploded into swinging shadows as the bulb flickered and went out. In the sudden darkness, she heard it, soft thump, as something small landed on the floor near the bed. Then creak, 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 the sound of tiny feet, hard and hollow, stepping slowly across the wooden floor toward where she lay. Emma scrambled backward, her back slamming against the cold, cracked wall. Her fingers searched blindly and found the corner of the fallen lamp. She grabbed it, holding the broken lamp base out in front of her like a weapon. Her breathing came in ragged sobs. A small shape stopped just beyond the edge of her vision. Silence. Her hand shook so badly she could barely hold on to the lamp. "Stay away," she whispered, voice shredded. "Stay away from me." The darkness seemed to lean in, listening. Then, from only a few feet away, she heard it. A sound she had never heard from the doll before. A tiny, dry, papery sound, like porcelain lips cracking open, like a smile stretching too wide, and something that almost sounded like a whisper. It was too soft to be words, but she felt them anyway. Closer. Her mother found her the next morning, curled up on the floor in the corner of her room, the lamp shattered nearby, the dresser still pushed against the locked door from the inside. Emma's eyes were open, staring. Her lips were parted, as if she had tried to scream, and the sound had been stolen from her. The official cause was shock and heart failure, and a whole list of words that didn't fit a 12-year-old girl. The house was quiet again, empty. The rocking chair by the window did not move. Weeks later, when the house went back on the market, the real estate agent walked through, checking each room. He whistled softly at the old furniture, the creaky floorboards, the strange feeling the place had. He stopped at the foot of the bed in the upstairs bedroom, frowning at the faint crack running up the wall. He peeked behind the rocking chair. On the floor, sitting neatly against the baseboard, was a porcelain doll. Its glass eyes were clear and bright now, a vivid blue that almost seemed to shine. Its cheek was still cracked, but in the center of the crack, something darker had dried, like a thin line of red-brown buried in the fracture. just visible if you looked closely enough. The agent grimaced. "Creepy little thing," he muttered. He picked the doll up and set it in a rocking chair, facing the window. For a moment, as he turned to leave, he thought he heard the faintest creak of wood behind him. He didn't look back. He didn't notice that the doll's head had turned just a fraction of an inch, its eyes now angled toward the bed, waiting for someone new to fall asleep.